Hello, everybody, and welcome to Riftbound Ramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and I am excited because today is day one of the official reveal season for Riftbound Set 1 Origins. And they gave us all 12 of these legends in the first day. I just made a video talking about how these were coming up, and already on June 9th, we've got these 12 legends ready to go. So without further ado, let's kick things off. Starting off, Ari, meant to be holding battlefields, calm and mind domains. Ari says whenever an enemy unit attacks a battlefield you control, give it -1 might this turn to a minimum of 1. Might control, pretty important when it comes to controlling these battlefields, so I kind of like how this legend is being shaped. Calm in mind is a little unknown to me on how they're going to work together. I like a lot of the calm things because they do work well with like mobility when we think of like Yasuo, and mind being a little more mysterious to me because I don't see how this character is going to synergize a lot with things that like Victor is doing. That being said, I do think this character is quite strong because it makes the math for your opponents much harder. And because this is on your legend, this is always active as long as you are in a battlefield, basically, that you've already controlled. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ari a diamond tier rating, using the League of Legends rating system. Not quite challenger level, not quite on the like pure high-end competitive, but I do think she has the potential to be quite good. That being said, we're also going to be talking about the signature spells for each of these characters. We have Foxfire. Foxfire is a 3-cost hidden and action card that just says kill any number of units at a battlefield with total might 4 or less. And because this your own Ari gives enemy unit attacking a battlefield -1, it's because it's this turn. I think this still works even if you lose the battlefield, but of course you don't want to lose the battlefield because you have the hidden. So while they're attacking, you get to do this kill spell. It costs you 3 to play, even if you play it as an action card. I think this might be one of the premier kill spells in the game, actually. Now, again, signature spell only works if you're playing an Ari deck, but I think this one's going to be challenger level. I do think this spell is worthwhile playing an Ari deck. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a pretty good rating, and honestly the highest one that I can give. But moving on, we got a bunch of these legends to get through, so we're going to go ahead and keep on going to Darius, a Fury and Order deck that says tap him as a reaction and with Legion. And Legion says you can only get this effect if you've played a card this turn. And it says add a mana. Just any sort of, I shouldn't say mana, but add an energy. Because it just allows you to go ahead and get an extra resource. Now these are different, of course, than the rocks that are within the demo decks. This doesn't give you the secondary resource that would require you to return your runes to your rune deck. This is instead the actual mana. So this to me feels like an even stronger ramp potential that Volibear can do, because I get it no matter what, but essentially it only works on my second spell each turn. Or second card, I should say. So I'm going to go ahead and give Darius challenger rating as well. I think Darius is going to be very good at playing those high-costed cards or multiple medium-level cards in a turn because of the Legion response. And as long as there's more cards like Legion that get these benefits of being played after other cards, this is going to feel very good in this deck and in these domains. Of course, Darius' signature spell is another sort of kill spell. This one costs 4, and you have to bounce either a red or a yellow. Noxie and Guillotine. As an action card, you choose a unit and you kill it the next time that it takes damage this turn. But if you have Legion activating, aka if you play this second or later, you can kill it right now immediately. So as we think of Ari's Foxfire that can kill multiple things, this only kills one thing or has the potential to kill anything as long as it defends or it deals any sort of damage or takes damage, of course. I think this is going to be another premium kill spell. Now, the bounce on this one makes me a little more hesitant, of course, but I do still think it is challenger level. I think this one is going to feel very good to play and is going to be a really good reason to play Darius. Moving on to our third legend already, of course, is Jinx the Loose Cannon. Of course, we already know what Jinx does if you played any sort of demos. At the start of your beginning phase, draw one if you have one or few cards in hand. She is under the Fury and Chaos runes. Uh, I don't have a lot of strong opinions with Jinx. I think it is a very strong aggro deck. There's going to be people that really enjoy this playstyle, especially if you enjoyed playing Jinx in Legends of Runeterra. But honestly, until I'm convinced otherwise, I do think she's only like a diamond tier aggro deck. I think there's going to be other characters and domains that might still do aggro a little better without having to sacrifice all the cards in your hand to do so. So I'm only going to give her a diamond tier, not all the way up to a challenger. But of course, one of the big reasons to play Jinx is her signature spell, Super Mega Death Rocket, which deals 5 damage to a unit for 4 and bouncing one of Rune of Fury or Chaos. And of course, when you conquer a domain, you can discard a card from your hand and return this from your discard pile to your hand. Uh, Incredibly powerful for its reusability. It allows you to always kind of keep discarding cards from your hand while also maintaining this powerful deal 5 to a unit spell. It's a way to always use your runes every single turn, essentially. It feels really good when you do get this off. I do give the Mega Death Rocket kind of the same tier, though, of course, as Jinx, is Diamond tier. It's a really good card. It feels really good when you play it. But man, oh man, every time I've played Jinx, you run out of cards, and if you're not in a winning position to win very soon, it's really hard to get back onto the field. Moving on, we now have Kaisa, one of a more exciting for people that were coming up because she's a spell slinger type character. Fury and Mind runes is very funny because she has red and blue, compared to like the other games like Magic the Gathering who have spell slinger red blue decks. But she's the Daughter of the Void, and she says you can tap her as a reaction, and you can add any color bounce resource basically. Wow. Now you can only use this to play spells, but she essentially is another form of ramp, sideways to Darius, kind of more closer to Volibear because it's that secondary resource, but because she gives you that resource, it's very similar to the rocks that exist within the demo decks, and it is so powerful. And she just gives it to you, but you can only use it to play spells. I think Kaisa's challenger tier. I think she's going to be so good. I think she's going to be incredibly powerful. And she also comes, of course, with her signature spell, Acathian Rain. Now for seven energy and bouncing 3 runes, you do this action 6 times. Deal 2 damage to a unit. And of course, you can choose different units for every single time you do that. So 12 damage for 7, bounce 3, but you really only bounce 2 because you're playing Kaisa. I'll be honest, I don't think this one's going to be challenger level like Kaisa is. I think you could probably play maybe one of these in a Kaisa deck and feel good, but I'm going to go ahead and give it the diamond tier rating. Um, it it's going to be good. 12 damage is a lot, but I just don't see this being like a 3 of in some of the other decks that I think like those kill spells are going to be. But regardless, Kaisa, very excited to see what people are going to do with this character, and I might even be excited enough to play her myself. Moving on, of course, we have Lee Sin under the Calm and Body domains. We have the Blind Monk, and he says pay 1, tap him, and buff a friendly unit. And of course, buff means if it doesn't have a buff already, it gets 1 might. Not very exciting. When I thought Lee Sin was going to be a buff character, I thought there was going to be a lot more kind of similar realms to like Magic the Gathering and like giving 1/1 counters to things. The fact that this costs 1 mana or 1 energy is pretty nice. As we know from Victor, like having a play to like go in between the awkward like rune pivot points is really nice. But I'll be honest, guys, I'm not really sold on Lee Sin. I think he's actually only like a gold tier legend, which is kind of sad because I'm hoping that the buff mechanic is going to feel a lot better than I think it is. But for right now, I'm going to give Lee Sin just a gold tier. I have to be convinced otherwise on how good I think Lee Sin is going to be. But of course, Lee Sin's signature spell is Dragon's Rage for 4 and bouncing 1. You move an enemy unit. Then choose another enemy unit at its destination. They deal damage equal to their mights to each other. So this is really good. This, like, I think this card's very, very strong. You only get to play it if you're playing Lee Sin, though. So, like, to me, that is kind of a negative for this card. But the fact that it is controlling where your enemy units are and then making them fight each other is really powerful. Does that mean Lee Sin is going to be a good deck just because you get to play Dragon's Rage? Maybe. But I've got to be convinced otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and give Dragon's Rage also a gold rating, but I do think Dragon's Rage is the reason to play a Lee Sin deck. Of course, not just being a body and calm domain deck. Next up, we have Leona, who's a stun controlled character. Radiant Dawn, under calm and order domains. And she says, whenever you stun one or more enemy units, buff a friendly unit. I think this is really good. I went ahead and said negative things about buffing on Lee Sin, but this is an extra bonus, an extra cookie, when you're already doing the thing that Leona wants you to be doing. I stun as we get to her signature spell. Stun is a very powerful ability in my opinion in the game, and so the fact that you also are going to get extra buffs on your units when you play the stuns, I think this deck is going to kind of solve itself. I think it's going to be a lot of making sure you have enemy or things on the board to buff, playing things to stun, and then as you go and you conquer territories, you don't have to worry about taking damage. So the buff is going to feel not only as like a safety gate for when you defend and try and hold those lanes, but it's going to feel really, really good if you can't stun every unit on a lane. Of course, Leona's. So I'm going to go ahead and give Leona a challenger. I think she's going to end up being quite good. I think she is at the mercy at how powerful calm and order domains are going to be for her card pool, but I do think just the effects here, as long as there's enough stun in the game, she's going to feel pretty good to play. Her signature spell, Zenith Blade, for 3 and bouncing 2. As an action card, you can stun an enemy unit at a battlefield, and then you may move a friendly unit immediately to that enemy unit's battlefield. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is very, very good. Make sure you have a unit on the board, you immediately stun something on a battlefield that you don't control, and you can buff a unit because of the static or the continuous ability on Leona, and then immediately you can move that buffed unit to that zone, and that hopefully is enough might to take down the enemy unit that's there, and you don't have to worry about any of that combat damage coming back your way because the unit is stunned. I think this is incredibly powerful. It's only for 3. Of course, the bounce 2 is very, very impactful, but you play a couple of rocks, and I think she's going to feel very good. Zenith Blade, challenger level card. This is a good character with a good signature spell. Coming up as well, we have Miss Fortune under the Body and Chaos domains. Bounty Hunter, you tap her and you give a unit ganking. Holy crap, I think ganking is so, so strong in this game. I think controlling battlefields and mobility, I felt this way already playing the Yasuo demo deck. The fact that this is another character under the Chaos domain, they're going to share cards, they're going to feel very powerful. I'm giving Miss Fortune challenger rating. I think she's incredibly powerful. She's going to feel very good. And of course, her signature spell, Bullet Time, for 1 rune as an action card. You can pay any amount of whatever color bouncing your runes to deal that much damage to all enemy units at a battlefield. This is where I got to take a step back. I'm not very sold on this one. I think bouncing your runes is very, very expensive. But for you to deal that amount of damage to every unit on a battlefield, you can kill anything that you want. Like, imagine bouncing 4 of your runes and dealing 4 to everything on a battlefield that you don't control, basically. And then you're immediately, because you can give ganking to something, you can take a unit that you already had on a battlefield immediately to another one. And she was going to be very, very good at probably ending the game by taking all 3 battlefields in the same turn. It's going to be good, don't get me wrong. I just don't think you're playing the max amount of quantities in a deck. And for that reason, I'm actually going to give it a silver. I don't feel very good about Bullet Time. I think bouncing your runes to your deck is very, very hard to recover from if you're not a ramp deck. But she does have body. She might get some extra ramp support, kind of like next to Volibear. So we'll have to see. But I do think just the character alone, the legend alone, she's going to feel very, very powerful. Coming up, we have Set under the body and order domains, the boss. And he says whenever a buffed unit you control would die, you may pay any color bouncing a rune back to your rune deck and exhaust me, turn him sideways, to spend its buff, get rid of the +1, and recall it immediately exhausted. You send it to your base, it doesn't count as a move. So that alone is very, very good. Set gets to save your units as long as they have buffs on them. Oh, and by the way, when you conquer, you get to ready him, and you can keep doing it as long as you have the runes, obviously, to bounce back to your rune deck. Wow. I think Set has a lot of text, little harder to execute, in my opinion, but it's going to be a buff deck that's like alongside Leona on the order domain. I think Sek is going to be challenger level easily. I think he's going to be a little harder to use, but your opponents are always going to have to think about killing your units that are buffed, which are already going to be harder to do. And even then, you can get them back with Set as a resource. I think Set's going to be incredibly fun to play, being able to try and manage and keep your units alive. Coming up also for his signature spell, we have Showstopper for 1 rune and 1 bounce. You buff a friendly unit in your base. Awesome, works for the character. And then immediately move it to a battlefield. Wow. Okay, this is good enough, I think. Even if you weren't Set, I think this card would be incredibly broken. I think you obviously have to be Set because this is a signature spell. But oh my goodness, mobility tacked on to the reusability and the regeneration that Set is already going to give your deck. Challenger level card instantly, and it only costs 1. I'm going to put a max amount of these in my deck. It's going to feel incredibly good. You're going to be able to conquer battlefields incredibly easy. It's that same benefit that Yasuo gets from being able to like move a unit immediately to another battlefield, or just like ganking. Sorry, is that how I should specify it? Ganking from one battlefield to another one. When you move a unit off of a battlefield back to your base, being able to play a 1-drop spell like Showstopper to immediately move it onto another one is that kind of mobility that is so powerful in this game. So I think this card is going to be incredibly good. Moving on, Teemo. Going to be a hidden and trap-based character under the Mind and Chaos domains. And he says, you may pay just 1 rune to hide a card with hidden instead of bouncing a rune. That's incredibly powerful. You may also pay 1 rune and tap Teemo. Put a Teemo unit you own into your hand from your champion zone or the board. I think that's incredibly powerful as well. You can basically save a Teemo. You can now I don't have the champion units here because obviously you want Teemo champion units. They're the ones that you're going to be able to do this with. But for only 1 rune and tapping Teemo to do a kind of the trick of moving him and keeping him safe is going to be very powerful. But from the top ability alone, paying 1 rune to hide a card instead of bouncing them, I hate to say it, guys, but Teemo is going to be, I think, a challenger level legend, which means I think there's going to be a lot of Teemos running around if you really like the hidden cards and the hidden gameplay. And speaking of hidden cards, we have his signature spell, Guerrilla Warfare, for 2 runes and 1 bounce. You can return up to 2 cards with hidden from your trash to your hand, and then you can hide ignoring costs this turn. Wow. That's so powerful for only 2 runes and 1 bounce. And you're already playing a character that you don't have to do the bounces at all for your hidden cards. I think this is easily a challenger level card. This is the reason to play Teemo, for doing the hidden mechanic. I think the biggest thing to answer here is getting units on the board and then trying to take over battlefields. If you're Teemo and you're playing a bunch of low-cost guys, it's going to feel good for you to conquer and to get onto the battlefields, and then you're basically relying on your hidden cards to keep them alive and safe. That's going to be the question I think you have to answer with this deck. But the hidden cards and having something like this to recur them from your discard pile, I think is going to be so incredibly powerful. Moving on, we have Victor, which if you've played the demo, you already know what this guy does. He goes wide and makes some tokens, kind of more of a control-oriented game plan as well, because he does have things like board wipes. But the Herald of the Arcane says pay 1 rune and tap them to play a 1 might recruit unit token. Makes little dudes. Very strong, very powerful. And now that we've kind of seen a little bit more of what's going on in the game, I'm going to give Victor a diamond tier rating. I think making tokens is a very strong mechanic and game plan to always have units on the board, but 1 might, as I'm kind of learning, is really not a lot to go off of, and that makes sense on why there's cards to like buff up the tokens. But just being able to do something with your 1 rune curve really, really feels good with those awkward in-between turns. Of course, we have Victor's signature spell as well, which is Siphon Power. For 2 runes and a bounce, as a reaction, you can play this, and you can choose a battlefield, give friendly units there +1 might this turn, and enemy units there -1 might this turn to a minimum of 1 might. I think this card is very strong. It makes your tokens obviously feel better, and for only 2 and a bounce, it's actually a pretty strong card, and it feels really good even in the demo experience. I am going to go ahead and give this card specifically a challenger. We'll just have to see how well and how good Victor gets in time. But I do think this is a fine legend with a very powerful signature spell, and so he's going to feel pretty good to play even out of the box. Of course, we have another demo deck here as well with Volibear. He's the ramp guy. Relentless Storm for the Fury and Body domains. He says, whenever you play a mighty unit, you may exhaust Volibear to channel 1 rune exhausted, which just means play 1 from your rune deck, tapped. And a unit is mighty as long as it has 5 or more might. He feels fine in the demo experience. He is very much the kind of character that if you leave him alone, he kind of can steal the game, but he's very, very hard to get off the ground. I'm hoping that with support within the actual set itself, he feels a lot better to play. But they did go ahead and show us also the over-numbered cards within the set, and so, wow, oh wow, look at this alternate art Volibear Relentless Storm. He looks incredibly good. And then they also showed us that there's going to be signature versions of these. So from the art alone, I'd give this guy challenger level from these sort of these alternate overnumbered cards that are going to be in the set. But when it comes to his abilities and how I think he's going to do in the game, I am only going to give him a diamond tier. He's going to be like the go-to ramp guy for sure because he comes in the deck. But I do think characters like Darius and even Kaisa, if you like the Fury domain, are going to feel probably a little bit better to play than this guy. But of course, it is reliant on what kind of mighty units we have access to. And then, of course, we have Volibear's signature spell, Stormbringer, for 6 runes and 2 bounces. You choose a friendly unit in your base. Deal damage equal to its might to all enemy units at a battlefield, and then you move that unit to that battlefield. Incredibly good. I'm not going to call it a board wipe, of course, because it only picks 1 battlefield. But it does guarantee that you can take that one without actually having to deal with any combat damage. And it means if somebody overputs a lot of units at that battlefield, this kind of answers it. I'm not saying it's going to be max quantities in a Volibear deck, but it does feel good enough to play. I'm going to give it a gold rating. It's going to feel good. You're getting to 6 isn't as bad. And then, of course, when you play a mighty unit, you'll be able to get those runes back. So it's not as bad in Volibear as you might think, but it still is a hefty cost when you're already trying to play a bunch of units as well. Moving on, of course, we have Yasuo, who is the mobility type character from the demo experience. He is under the Calm and Chaos domains, and he just says you can pay 2 and tap him, move a friendly unit to or from your base. So it's not ganking. You cannot move a unit to another battlefield, but you can take a unit from your base and move it onto a battlefield, and then that counts as just using Yasuo's ability, so you can still move the unit itself. Or you can move a unit from a battlefield back to your base to keep it safe, and because this is an ability, you can do it at like reaction speed, basically. And it feels very, very powerful. I like Yasuo a lot. I think mobility and moving characters and moving units in this game is very, very key to being successful. And hey, they also showed us the overnumbered Yasuo as well, and it looks great. So Yasuo mains rejoice. You're gonna have a really cool Yasuo legend card to pimp your deck out and be able to stare at every single time. And yes, of course they showed us the signature signed one by the artist as well, and it just looks great. Looks absolutely phenomenal. But when it comes to their abilities, I also think Yasuo is going to be a very strong legend. I think Calm and Chaos have the ability to be very powerful with other characters that share space, like Ari in the Calm side, and Chaos. We've seen plenty of those cards, but I think hitting cards and getting controls of battlefields is going to feel very, very good with characters like Yasuo. Then we, of course, we have Signature Spell for Yasuo, which is Last Breath for 3 and 2 bounce. As an action card, you can ready a friendly unit. That's good. And then it deals damage equal to its might to an enemy unit at a battlefield. This is very, very good. For only 3, yes, the bounce 2 is pretty rough in this deck, but I think this spell alone is going to be very, very good. I didn't even give it a rating because I forgot to, but I do think it's a challenger level spell as well to go with a challenger level legend, and he comes in the deck, so it feels really good there. But of course, with that, this is a very long video, and it's going to be a long spoiler season as I have more videos to crank out. Everybody, thank you so much for sticking around this long. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you see, and I hope to see you all next time.